I think a lot of people get really flipped out when they look at jiu-jitsu and there's like this close contact.
Mm-hmm.
There's this real kind of intimate thing, and they can't. So like, I heard you say that you had no idea about that. And like, how did you reconcile that? How did you go from like being afraid of that to being a black belt? Like what did you have to overcome mentally, and how did you do that?
A lot of it again is a confidence thing, and even with the time I spent at Taekwondo, I know when I started training jiu-jitsu, one of the things that I jokingly say you Mr. Miyagi me, because I didn't
I
even
Mr. Miyagi?
yeah, I didn't even think you like I didn't realize at first that you were trying to help me. I would always apologize.
Yeah.
If I banged into you on accident or
Right.
knocked something down. I'm sorry. And there's a time and a place to apologize.
Certainly.
But, it was a confidence thing. Like everything was my fault. So to kind of come from Taekwondo, building that confidence, I actually learned how to be a teacher at Taekwondo because I'm a teacher for trade, my profession, but I never went to school for education. I never went to school to become a teacher.
So good. It's so good.
It gave me the confidence and the skill set to be able to manage a classroom with 150, because each phys ed teacher has 50 kids, and then there are 3 of us, and one of us is teaching at a time. So I have 150 students whose attention I have to get. So Taekwondo gave me that, but the confidence still wasn't fully there. It's still growing.
Yes.
Because there are times, and we spoke about sometimes when I train with you, I get in my own head and I use the word devolve.
Yeah.
And trying to fight off that self-doubt. So it's still constantly overcoming the confidence issue, but you kind of reconcile it with the contributions that you make, the progress that you make. I know in the beginning when you're a white belt, you feel like white to blue, wow, I got so much better.
Yeah.
And blue to purple, wow. And then you get to a certain level where you don't see the big leaps, but like physically, externally. But internally, the internal knowledge of just understanding how a joint lock works, or understanding how trying to, break somebody's balance works. It's those little triumphs, and I don't apologize as much anymore. So that
what just real quick, like not to make it about me, but I'm interested to know what was the Miyagi moment? Like because I'm sure people listen here and go, "Oh, I apologize a lot."
Yeah. You wouldn't accept my apology. And not in a nasty or negative way. You're like, you have nothing to be sorry for.
Yeah.
Why are you apologizing? Like, take a look at that. And it's hard sometimes because you miss it. I kick myself in the butt because there were so many things that I think you were trying to offer me earlier on in my training, and I was rejecting it. And not overtly or disrespectfully, but you would be like, Kim, I love the way you say my name, by the way. You go, Kim, you're going too fast, or your face or your eyes look a little.
Yeah.
And I would always be like, no. I would answer you respectfully.
Yeah.
But I'd be like, no. And I go home and I'm like, why am I pushing back? Like, if my teacher is seeing it, he's seeing something I'm not seeing. And I think for all of us, we have sometimes, I don't know if it's fight or flight, but we have this, motivation or urge to prove somebody wrong.
Yeah.
Like, no, you're wrong.
Mechanism.
You're wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that.
Right.
So you got to kind of like accept it and let it wash over you.
It's so interesting that you are saying that, because on our way up the stairs to the podcast studio, I was confessing that same point about Mr. Vizio. I'd said to you, I turned into the guy.
Yeah.
Like, and now I embrace all of these things that like he used to make me pissed off about because he was zinging me all the time and I just didn't understand it. And it's fascinating that like I'm hearing a very similar point. Like we one of the purposes of a good teacher is to rattle the cage, and I think a good response from a great student really is to go back and reflect, like, wait, why? What? Like, is there something I'm not seeing? Is there something I can benefit from? And continue to grow. I think that's the genius of it.
I agree, and I see it now. You see younger students do. Even if I go to offer them something,
Right.
they have a better way, and I'm like, you don't see it now, but you're going to see it one day.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you really stick with this practice and you allow
Right.
yourself to evolve and grow, you're going to have that aha moment that I had, where at first I was like, no, my eyes aren't crazy, or I'm not going too hard. I don't need to slow down. And then you're going to be like, oh yeah, he's been right all these years. Like,
thank you. And I wasn't trying to be right. I'm just
Oh,
trying to get you
absolutely.
here. I was
Yeah.
trying to get you here. Like, my only goal is to keep people training,
Yeah.
because what it gives us, not me, the teacher, but the art, the practice, the engagement, what it gives us is something really phenomenal. Just as an aside, like, we were talking about my friend Thomas Clifford
Mhm.
and how much he admires you, your martial arts skill, and the way you behave in the classroom. But he had said to me recently, you were 20 years ahead of your time in terms of what we were trying to do in jiu-jitsu. And Kim, there wasn't a lot of social proof for this methodology
Mhm.
when you started. It's now 20 years, right? It's 2000,
7.
close.
Yeah, we're
So it's
coming
18
up.
years. It's the
Mhm.
better end of 20 years, right? So, there wasn't a lot of social proof. In fact, the social proof was opposite what we were doing. So if you looked around, you got a lot of like information that we didn't know what we were doing.
Mhm.
But it's just, I started so early on, and I had this martial art reference point,
Mhm.
and I was seeing like, whoa, this is not it. This is just not it. And now I think a lot of people are coming to it. Like, we were the first school to have a uniform, a warm up, a
Mhm.
protocol. Like, people were leaving going like, you're imposters yourself. Like, you don't know what you're doing. Like, I think we were the first school to stop doing the gauntlet where people get whipped with the belts.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I had people
Brutal.
pull me in the office and go, "You're not a real jujitsu teacher because you don't do the gauntlet." Like, and I'm like, "You're nuts, man. Like, get out." Well, there was this whole
Crazy.
thing where like, and some people still do it. God bless you if you do. I don't know, like, you got mental problems, but like, the class lines up and they tie their belt with a knot in it. So you're getting hit with a knotted rope, and you got to go through the line. And in those days, there weren't a lot of women, so men would take off their shirts. So you got whipped, or their gi. You got whipped bare chested, and you had to go through the class and then back down while people whipped the shit out of you. And then you got your belt, and like, I was like, this is nuts. Yeah, I mean, at some point when I realized it
Yeah.
was nuts, but like, people would leave. They would pull me aside and go like, "You're a fake. You're a fraud. Like, you don't do the gauntlet." I'm like, "Okay, take care. Comb your hair, brush your hair." And those people are on Instagram. Those people are on Facebook. They're not training. They're not, like, they had so much to say, but they didn't last. They didn't.
No.
They didn't. It was just it was like, I guess, a facade. It was like they wanted to be a part of this thing that they didn't know what they were getting into.
It's also, I think, like the deeper understanding. I don't know. For me, the respect, the passion for the art, the it's not just a physical thing. It's spiritual. It's
Hell yeah.
emotional. It's psychological, and in a good way.
Yeah.
My wife will look at me and she'll tell if I haven't trained in a while. She's like, "You need to go to the dojo," because it's my therapy. It's my
There's so
relief. And there's a social aspect because it is your partners are in very precarious situations at times. And they have to have that trust in you that you're not going to lose your mind and hurt them. And in turn, they're not going to lose their minds and hurt you. So it just offers so much more. And I feel like maybe some of these people that haven't lasted never got to that level of understanding.
Yeah. The other thing that concerns me, and I'm listening, is that, the people who are controlling the Discord right now, they're very, I know that our job is to carry the martial arts into the future.
Mm-hmm.
And on our watch, we're supposed to take care of it. And I think a lot of people who are at the forefront right now are not doing a good job. They're great athletes.
Mm-hmm.
They're great teachers. I'm struggling not to say the name of the person I'm thinking about. They're geniuses.
Mm-hmm.
They've radically, enhanced the physical portion, but they leave it there. And why I think that is problematic is the people who invented the art, Mr. Kano, Mr. Funakoshi, they they expressly say it's mind, body, spirit.
Mm-hmm.
It is that, and it is only that. It's like, the physical practice is driving us in that direction. And, none of us are perfect, right? We're all in
Mm-hmm.
process, myself included, right?
Mm-hmm.
People look and go, well, you're not perfect. And my response is, you don't know where I started from. You have no
Right.
idea what it was like for me. And so to kind of hold that value structure
Mm-hmm.
and to work inside of that context and then be accountable for bringing the martial arts, what you've got in your suitcase, and take it and drop it off to the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
It's so important. Super, super important.
And I think that's, obviously our version of the martial arts in 2024 has an ancient history, right?
It has a line,
yes.
sure.
And so, a lot of the Asian or Eastern martial arts, yin and yang and balance. So you're talking about mind, body, spirit. They're so body oriented or physically oriented. You're kind of off kilter, and it's hard to have longevity if you're not in balance.
Yeah.
In karate, you talk about. Forgive me for not remembering the Japanese words, but the forever stance.
Yeah. Musobidachi,
yes,
infinite stance.
Infinite stance. If you're only physically capable of doing something and you're not in control of the mental aspects, then how can you really truly be in control of yourself, of your life? So to go back to that point of, 20 years ago, people were saying you're nuts. And now people are coming onto this side of, their opinion. I think that's part of it is they didn't focus on the spiritual. They didn't focus on the mental. They only focus on the body.
Yeah.
And so they've been off kilter and almost out of control, if you will.
Yeah.
So I really feel like, for me at least, to call yourself a martial artist, I'm so Brooklyn. I heard the accent come out just then.
Go Brooklyn.
To call yourself a martial artist, you have to be willing to, how you doing? You have to be willing to accept those other parts of it.
Yeah.
Because there's a humility and a humbleness. It's not about you. When you walk on the mat, it's not about you. It's about your partner. It's about paying tribute to the people that came before you.
Mm-hmm.
It's about learning a knowledge that, learning about something that started decades, centuries ago.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't just come now.
Let me ask you something. If I was a young person and you're telling me that, I'm like, well, what good does that do me? What would you say?
That knowledge is something that's acquired through life. And there are definitely going to be mistakes that people have to make to be able to learn. You know, your parents tell you don't touch the oven, it's
Yeah.
hot, or the stove.
I put my damn hand
Yeah,
right
you
on
still
it.
have
The
to
first
burn
time she
yourself.
said it to me,
Yeah.
boom.
You still have to get burned to
Yeah.
learn. But if you can trust enough to allow yourself to open your mind up to the idea that I can learn from other people's mistakes or other people's experiences, and to not just turn your nose up to the idea that respect and discipline and hard work, chop wood, carry water,
Yeah.
that there's a value to just putting your shoulder to the wheel and grinding and thinking for yourself and not just following blindly. I think those would be great lessons for, a younger person to at least hear.
Yeah.
The message I try to give in my classes is, I call it the 4 Ps of phys ed: to be present, to be punctual, to be prepared, and to participate. And lately I've been also adding a 5th P, which is to be proactive.
Wow.
Because with our cell phones, I find myself sometimes not being present because I could be here talking with you, but,
That's right.
answering a text at the same
That's right.
time. But if you can apply that to the martial arts, you can apply that to your schoolwork, you could apply that to the relationship you have with your parents or to your boyfriend or to your girlfriend. I feel like that's a recipe for success. So when you're in those classes, to be in that moment, be present, be punctual, be prepared, and participate, and then
proactive,
be
right?
proactive. And that's the great thing with jujitsu, because you are trying to be proactive, because you're trying to not just react because you have to react, but react because you're thinking about what the other person is going to do before they even do it.
I recently went back to this book, Think and Grow Rich, and there are so many parallels to Japanese karate. Like just to speak to this point about proactive, like one of the pillars, one of the 3 pillars of kumite, of Japanese fighting, like sparring or, engagement, is intuition. It's timing, distance, and intuition. And in Think and Grow Rich, the author, I'm going to paraphrase a bit, but is saying that like our minds are like an antenna, and they're picking up thoughts from the infinite consciousness, and it's also picking up thoughts from other people.
Mm-hmm.
It's receiving that. And this intuition, this like thinking like, or receiving these ideas helps us to be proactive. When we learn to listen to them, and then we can make decisions, responses in the moment that's helping us stay ahead, is a very, very martial art point, and I love that you say jujitsu, like it is jujitsu. It's so important. And, that's one of the things that I too am trying to get across in the classroom, is like trusting yourself, trusting your inner dialogue, trusting that antenna. Because when you're in it, when you're engaging with the practice on a certain level, and it may seem like a high level, it just seems to take a while to get there, then your conscious and unconscious mind are they're working together for your benefit to problem solve. Mr. Vizio will oftentimes say, like, at this point, Gene, you should be able to judge a book by its cover. And I know what he means.
Right.
He means like you're so in tune with the micro movements of the body, of like of your thought impulses, and then you're able to, through years and years and years of practice, evaluate pretty effectively. I think it's a great lesson for your students, being proactive as it relates to intuition.
Yeah.
It's very good. It's really good. Kim, what? I, let's conclude with, like, at this point in your practice, what does black belt mean to you? What, like, we spend years trying to get there, and then we find that we spend more years there, you know?
Yeah.
And what does it mean to be a black belt to you? What does it mean to live the life of a black belt?
Well, I know you said like we're all still learning and we're not perfect. But it's to accept those imperfections. Kaizen is such a wonderful concept of never ending. You're striving for perfection. You're not going to reach it, but you're trying to get there. So to accept it when you make a mistake, try to leave it behind. So this way it doesn't seep back into your mind and distract you from what you're working at. And for me, a lot of it is giving back.
Contribution.
Yeah. Obviously I'm a teacher by profession, but there's something about being in a class and working with a partner and having the teacher show a technique. And, if I'm partnered up with someone, if I notice that maybe their hand placement is off or, whatever it is, and I'll give a little coaching and have, when we come back in for like a summary, to have that be what's highlighted by the teacher. You had just given that little detail to somebody. For me, it's that ability to give them that little bit extra, and then to also see that, oh, okay, I'm understanding this at a higher level because this little detail that I gave my partner is the same detail that my teacher just brought everybody in to draw their attention to. So it's kind of a twofold because I'm getting a little something out of it, right? Because I saw like, oh, wow, good job, Kim. Like you saw something that your teacher also thinks is important. Right. But then I can also give to my partner.
Right. Contribution.
So, yes.
So I think the overarching point is you're getting fulfillment by contributing. And that's kind of the path of black belt at this point, right?
Yeah. And again, being older, I'm not going to be able to train the way I trained when I was in my 30s. And I've accepted that. And it makes my focus be on different techniques because maybe I don't have the flexibility or the strength that I had 15 years ago.
And being open for that?
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. But also, if I can't do it, then I can live vicariously through my partners. And you see the growth, that these younger or newer students, the age doesn't matter, but the less experienced student is taking, and you watch them run with it. And it's a beautiful thing.
Excellent. I am reminded of this point that I've kind of tried to get to the black belts where, our dignity as martial artists, as black belts, is in what we contribute. And like, I understand that the word grace is to give, is to bless others. And so I try to like marry this, like, being a graceful black belt, maturing with a gracefulness about us is all about giving. And I think you embody that. And I think you're just such a wonderful contribution to the school. You've stood by me through thick and thin, some harrowing experiences. And I'm so grateful to you. And I just think you have a gracefulness about you that's magnificent and inspiring for everyone who's paying attention.
Thank you, Shihan. The same could be said in return. I mean, you've been some tough times with my dad being ill. And I remember, I do remember that day. And you blew my mind when you said, you remember the day we met. But the other memory that I hold near and dear is when my dad passed and you came and you sat and just paid respect and showed support. But you've stood by me through a lot of challenges as well. So
thank you, Kim.
I appreciate all that you've done.
I love you. Thank you.
I love
Great
you
job.
Too. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Gentle Art Podcast. Please share, rate, and review. And if you have any questions or you'd like to reach out, please contact us at the GentleArtPodcast@gmail.com or contact us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter or thegentleartpodcast.com.